In this video, I'm going to show us how to get to our CO2 car from our H drive, and then also I'm going to show us how to go to our front view and end up cutting our car to length. It's going to end up being anywhere from 210 millimeters to the full length of our car. Now, my desktop's a little different than yours, but you should be able to find your H drive on your desktop. It looks very similar to mine, though it might be a little bit over to the left. The next thing is we can also access it from the start menu here. But I'm going to go to H drive first, double click. One of the things that I did last week is I just saved it there. There was no other things that I did. So I'm going to organize this a little bit by right clicking and doing a new folder. I'm just going to call this folder my 7th grade D and M, meaning the design and modeling, just so I have an idea where that is. And then I'm going to click and drag my SketchUp file that I had just laying out here into that. It'll just help create less clutter in my workspace. If you want to, you can do that. You don't have to, but make sure it's in your H drive. If you don't find it there, it's probably underneath your downloads or documents from your previous work, if it's still saved. Now, going into my folder I just made and opening up my blank that I had, double click to open it up, and then we should be able to start using SketchUp without having to select a template, and it should open up. Once we get in, we may have a couple pop-ups, and I'm just going to click ignore, and then just once again explain a few things. Remember, when I scroll in or scroll out, wherever my cursor is, when I scroll back in is where it's going to end up going to our piece. We have 3 different scenes up here to help us work. Half car for modeling, full car to see what we're doing, because remember, our backside will mirror our front side of our design. And lastly, to print, it is ortho printing, which we'll utilize later. So going to my half car for modeling, one thing I want to explain quick is we are working in a thing called components. So we are going to be working in the component. In order to work in a component, we have to double click in and have this box around in order to do any edits. So what that means is, if we're out of the component and I come in, and even though I'm going to draw a couple pencil lines here in the front, escape when it tries to chase me around from top to bottom, which should allow me to use the push-pull tool. Since it's a component, it's saying no, giving me that symbol that says that's not going to happen. So I'm just going to edit undo a few things, Control Z to go back, and then if I double click into my component and I see this border, now I am allowed to edit my model. So if I do the exact same thing, just to give you an idea, very, very similar to what I just did, and using that push-pull tool, I can make it cut or extend from my model. Hitting escape to stop that, edit undoing a few more times. Just wanted to explain what components are. We need to make sure we're seeing this box whenever we're working. Now, another thing that we're setting up is just kind of looking around orbit. The backhand side here, we want to make sure that we're not cutting too close to our CO2 car hole, which won't be in this step anyways. Also, we want to make sure we remember that we have to have our space underneath our axle holes. We can't cut wherever we decide to put them later on. Just giving you some thoughts to think about. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm already in my component. If I wasn't, remember to get back in, double click. I like to go to Camera, Standard Views, Front to do this step. I'm going to use my tape measure tool. I'm going to go down here to the left-hand edge, and I'm just going to go on the edge, making sure I'm clicking with my handle. And I'm going to click, and then I'm going to slide. What I'm going to do is, I'm going to give myself a reference. So if I type in 210, and I hit enter there, after I clicked and moved, it gives me an idea about where the shortest my car could possibly be. I don't have to make it that short, but I can. Now, actually the minimum is going to be 205, but that gives you a 5 millimeter buffer there in case you end up messing up or making a few mistakes while measuring or cutting. So now I know where I can be right now. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to decide from my blue axis, or from my left hand edge here, I'm going to click and move over. Where do I want to be? From 210 all the way to my full size length, which is 305. Reminder that the the track is the same length for everyone, so maybe the longer cars might have an advantage. So coming in from here, I am going to just adjust mine a little bit. I'm going to come in, I'm going to make it a 300. And if I get close, like 295, and I click here, I can just enter 300 by pushing it in, and then hitting enter, and it will move my car over. Now, to do any cuts, what I want to do is I'm going to click and depress my mouse, and I'm going to orbit just a little bit to go back at ISO. I could go click back in my scene for my half car for modeling, and then I'm going to make a line from intersection to intersection with my pencil tool. So go over and switch to my pencil tool. I click on the top of my component, and I click on the bottom. You gotta make sure you click on those two intersections, because if we use our push-pull tool any other way, it won't work. It needs to make sure we're cutting off that front surface. Now if I go to my push-pull tool, by selecting there, it will highlight the area where I'm going to end up push-pulling. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the front, slide to the back, and then click on the back edge. That's going to end up deleting that surface. Now my car is 300 millimeters. That's how we do the first step. Now one of the things that I want to do right away here is I want to make sure I'm saving. So I do a File, Save As. This gives me a chance to name my car appropriately. One of the things we do in the room is we make sure we name it per hour. And I'm just going to use second hour's label first. So always start with your hour, 2, and then your login. Mine would be Lema Robert, and then my middle initial 0, or 0, O, and then 00, and then we're going to call it the thing we're doing here, and this is CO2 car. So CO2. Alright, and that gives me a file name, so now I know that I've updated that. I'm going to click Save. One thing we can do here is just make sure we're going from this PC to our H drive to make sure it's going in the right spot. It should go desktop. Your H drive has a little bit more of a name to it, but it should be H drive, and then click Save. Now we know our model is saved before we go on to the next step. One thing we can do right now too is after that we can get rid of our guides. If we go into Edit, we can go Delete Guides and kind of start that portion fresh in our next step. Thank you for watching this video.